am so happy to be here this morning and, just wanted to thank everybody for the generous, opportunity to present on application of small scale biogas. So I am a permaculture designer. I have a certification in hydroponics, and I also do a lot of work with soil restoration on our property. And really, this is our soil story that I'm going to be sharing with you today, and how awesome small scale biogas is for restoring our soil. So in 2014, I had just completed my permaculture design certificate, and I thought being a permaculture designer meant we had to plant a lot of trees. And I did, and my trees were not doing well at all. So I was also working with Dr. T.H. Culhane with our small scale biodigesters in the basement. And he told me, well, all you have to do is just put some of that wonderful liquid fertilizer from your biodigesters on your trees, and they're going to start to look better. But they were still looking very nutrient deficient and dry, and I couldn't figure out why this wasn't working. So I took pictures of our soil and our trees to my holistic management class, and this was soil scientists that I was working with, and they taught me so much. And they said basically I had like 6 months to build up a massive amount of soil, because if I did not, I was going to lose all of my trees because we were on sand. So I learned about organic matter and why it's important for us to be adding carbon to the soil. And I also learned that nitrogen breaks down carbon as part of my class. And so I kind of put the two together, that if we were using the liquid fertilizer from the biodigesters plus carbon such as straw, I could be building up a massive amount of soil very quickly. And that's exactly what I did. I took the carbon, the straw from our barns and from our chicken coops, and I applied that to the soil. And what we know is that the decomposers that are in these little dome biodigesters are still active when they come out of the digester, especially with these small 1 cubic meter systems. And so that nitrogen that's in the liquid fertilizer, with those decomposers, the methanogens, they do an amazing job of making quick work of breaking down that carbon, that straw, into beautiful, rich soil. And what I want you to see here is the time that it took for me to really start to build up our soil. You see in the upper left, we started with just straight sand. And these mason jars you see, that's a very easy way for you to see what the organic matter content is of your soil, because we put the soil in the jar, you give it a shake, you let it sit for 24 hours, and then the sediment starts to settle. You can see how much organic matter versus how much soil you have. So sandy soil, 6 months post-treatment, you still see a lot of that roughage in there at the top of the jar. And then once we get to like about 2 months post-treatment, you could see that it's starting to become that rich soil. And 4 years post-treatment, I have soil that goes from my fingertips down to my elbows, because this works. And the results show all over our property. We have forestry gardens. Everything is luscious and beautiful. My trees no longer look nitrogen deficient. And when we feed the soil, it gives back to us tenfold. So this right here on the right is a picture of the little sad looking tree that you saw earlier in my presentation. And this right here is a mighty pawpaw tree, a northern hardy tree. So we live in a temperate climate. Our growing season is approximately 6 months of the year. And where we live in New York, it is sandy shale, which is why it's so vital for us to be building up the soil. So the other way that we use small scale biogas at our home is by cooking. So we use like a biogas stove on top of our electric stove. And it is super convenient for us because our biodigester is integrated into our basement. So it's simply a process of using a garbage disposal unit that grinds the food to feed the biodigester. directly in the basement. Oh, look, and I even have a TH Colhane handy in my basement, who he's the one who installed my basement biodigesters. So it's his invention and his invention. And so I also use the biogas for barbecuing. It's wonderful. You have friends over for the summer. And in the back behind here is a home biogas digester, which I use for our dog poo and cat poo and also pig poo, because it's very important not to be composting dog and cat manures, because that carries fecal coliform. So we want to separate ourselves from those dangerous bacteria. And on the right is the floating gas system. That is how we store the gas, because you definitely don't want to be storing biogas in your house. That is not safe. And when I first met TH Colhane in 2013 at Clearwater Festival, I was doing vertical aeroponics. And one of the students came up to me and said, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing. We have to be using the liquid fertilizer from biodigesters in these vertical aeroponics." And I was like, "Oh yes, we're doing that." And what the research shows is that a lot of the nutrients that plants need is available in this fabulous liquid fertilizer. And the magic thing about biogas is that that pH neutral range that our biodigesters need to thrive is also what plants need for having the fertilizer and the nutrients bioavailable to them. So when I first started working with TH, we were doing some experimentation with the liquid fertilizer and vertical aeroponics. I have a vertical aeroponic greenhouse at our home. I noticed a difference between his plants and mine. One of the reasons is because his digesters were a little bit older than mine, and his plants were coming out kind of leggy, and they didn't have enough lighting. And this is the greenhouse over at Mercy College. And so I was trying to figure out, like, okay, what's going on here with the plants? And my plants were doing fantastic. And little did I know, but I had something called beginner luck, which, my digesters were young. And so their ammonia levels were really low and the nutrient levels were high from the manure. So when I started, the plants were doing dang on fantastic. But slowly over time, I started to notice that I was having trouble with the plants. And that is because of the ammonia that builds up in these biodigesters. And that's something we really have to consider when we're considering doing hydroponics with the liquid fertilizer from these, especially these little dome digesters, because our decomposers are still doing their thing. Those decomposers that do an amazing job at breaking down that carbon to build soil are still active in these little digesters. And if you don't dilute appropriately or use a biofilter, those little microbes are going to be eating up the roots of your plants. So I had a lot of success using deep water culture on property, which is a hydroponic system where we have a bubbler that functions as like a natural biofilter, and just keeping really close eye on my ammonia levels. I'm able to grow food that way. And I grow my tomatoes and my beans. And I also do a lot of seedling starts for our greenhouse that we are doing with vertical aeroponics. And, this right here is a bok choy that I grew with vertical aeroponics with the liquid fertilizer from the digester. And I'm just continuing to do a lot of experimentation with that. I work with 2 different composting companies. Any questions? So, there you go. So I'm happy to answer any questions right now. I wanted to keep it down to the 10 minutes. I think I hit it exactly.
Yeah, nice. Any questions? Hope everyone listened to Kathy's presentation. So, Butler. So now you are producing biogas.
Mm-hmm.
How much?
Yeah.
How much?
We use it for cooking.
How much? How much?
How much?
Yes, quantity.
Okay. All right. So I have 2 cubic meter systems, and they are fed by the kitchen sink, and they receive a lot of gray water. So on average, I am getting about 500 liters for 2 cubic meters of biodigester a day. And the outside biodigester is just coming online now because it's the beginning of the growing season. And so I get about 200 liters of biogas from that per day right now. And that is strictly fed cow, cat, and dog manures. So once the temperatures start to go up warmer, my biogas production is going to go higher. So during the winter, I'm about 200 to 500 liters of biogas a day. During the summer, I am producing over 800 to possibly 1,000 liters a day, which is why we have the barbecue, because we need to be burning through that gas.
Yeah, good. And Joaquin, you're there in that biogas business. I believe that you're also the director of a company, biogas. So, what quantity of biogas your organization, your company is producing currently? Yes, Joaquin, will you say what the quantities you are producing?
Our company is related with our company in this case of related biogas. Yeah, in this case, we are not produce biogas. We are involved in application of biogas. In this case, mainly in the part related with the purification of biogas for use a biofuel for or raw material to produce energy or another product. Is our main focus.
Yeah. So Karthik,
Not production.
Karthik, hi Karthik.
Yes, I see. I see that Kathy take advantage the versatility used for one hand biogas for cooking and for other digestive for fertilizant at the agriculture. It's nice well.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me. I know Jeff is going to be talking a lot about carbon nitrogen later in his presentation. So all the work that I'm doing right now with the University of Massachusetts, as well as these composting cooperatives in New York City, is available to see in my class at biogaseducation.com. And I am just so thrilled about this platform that you all have created. And I'm looking forward to watching the recording when I get home from work. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy.